The Deep Ruler episode number 99 explanation. The atmosphere around the transaction stage became a little solidified as many gazes were rotating between Mu Chen, Qin Feng, and Liu Xiong. In this period of time, the Academy Alliance rose up in this great spiritual academy tournament. They originated from different academies. The main crucial point was that these academies were not the best. Contrary, they were small to medium-sized academies that had only sent out one team for the tournament. Yet, when these small to medium-sized academies joined together as an alliance, they defeated many teams originating from powerful academies in the short time of a few months. Thereafter, they snatched points from those swaggering teams. At the same time, many people started to understand. In terms of strength as individuals, those small to medium-sized academies did not have much advantage. However, the instant they got together, they could become extremely powerful under someone's leadership. After all, no matter how small an academy was, they still had one or two outstanding students. After all, this world was not lacking in terms of talent. Rumor had it that the Academy Alliance had 4 leaders. Qin Feng and Liu Xiong, who stood before them, were only ranked as the 3rd and 4th. Above them, there were 2 other leaders. The one whose name that rang out the most was the Ghost King, Mo Yu, standing at the 2nd rank. Some time ago, in a ruined struggle, a team from the Martial Spiritual Academy was defeated by the team that was led by Mo Yu. From that battle, his name became renowned. However, though Mo Yu's fame was well known, those that knew about the inside story knew that within the Academy Alliance, the most powerful was the leader, who did not make much of an appearance. He was the one that created the Academy Alliance. No one knew what happened within the process of it, but everyone knew that the 3 other prideful leaders were filled with respect for that head. Everyone knew that the 3 of them possessed strength, as well as means. However, before the head, they could only maintain their respect. Therefore, even a kid could tell that the head of the Academy Alliance was not someone easy to deal with. That had always been how the Great Spiritual Academy tournament had been. Talents that appeared in the tournament were way too much. Mu Chen stood before the transaction stage as he maintained a calm composure. His black pupils were looking at the 2 youths that stood on the 2nd floor. Likewise, the 2 of them were also looking at him from above as they showed a little ridicule in their smile. Ha ha, I have long heard of Captain Mu Chen of the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy for a long time. I never expected that we would meet here. It is truly my honor. That blonde-haired youth Qin Feng looked at Mu Chen as he smiled. I never expected that Captain Mu Chen would also be interested in this spiritual array diagram. I suppose it was me being rude. Although his tone was as shown, there wasn't any hint of apology in his eyes. Mu Chen also smiled in return. It was an auction style of trade. There is nothing to be rude about. 3,500. Mu Chen looked at the youth on the transaction stage and gave his bid. Shortly after, he shrugged his shoulders. We don't have much points. If leader Qin Feng could outbid me, I'll have to give up in the competition for the spiritual array diagram. They only had a total of 3,700 points, so the bid that Mu Chen had given was already the limit. Similarly, the price was extremely high. There weren't many teams that could be this bold. Truly rich and imposing. When Qin Feng heard Mu Chen's offer, he smacked his lips as he stared at Mu Chen. He smiled as he waved his hand. However, I have to apologize. We are determined to win the spiritual array diagram. 4,000. Whoa. Commotion began to break out in the surrounding stage. Many teams had their faces filled with astonishment. Those 4,000 points could basically guarantee any team into the top 16. The Academy Alliance was really rich, as they easily took out that amount without any hesitation. 4,000, just how many teams have they robbed and how many bitter battles have they gone through just to obtain that amount? The eyes of Xu Huang and the rest also had anger surfacing in their eyes. Was the Academy Alliance doing it on purpose? Luo Li also slightly knitted her brows. However, she did not speak a word and only directed her gaze at Mu Chen. Mu Chen smiled as he gave a deep look at Qin Feng, before shaking his head. Let's go. It seems like there isn't any fate in me and the spiritual array diagram. As he spoke, he had intended to turn around and leave. Although he wanted the spiritual array diagram, the offer of his opponent had far surpassed their bottom line. 4,500. Just when he turned around, a clear voice suddenly resounded with arrogance. Including Mu Chen, everyone was startled. Thereafter, he directed his gaze towards the dazzling beauty. Wen Qingxuan's slender jade-like fingers were fiddling with her hair. Her gaze that was filled with arrogance lightly swept towards Qin Feng and Liu Xiong, who stood on the second floor. Her arrogance made others seem like ants before her. Wen Qingxian. Wen Qingxuan's reputation was not something that Mu Chen could compete against. The moment she spoke, everyone's gazes shifted onto her almost instantly. Naturally, there were many that had heat in their eyes, as well. Towards the most dazzling girl in the current tournament, there was no one that did not know of her. What are you doing? Mu Chen was also taken aback by Wen Qingxuan's sudden action. Shortly after, he frowned his brows. Although they were currently working together, the cooperation between them was just to take what they each required. Therefore, although he knew that this girl beside him was someone that held the most amount of points, he did not even have any intention to ask her for help, since he was well aware that the amount of points was not something that any other team could overlook. It's not your points, why do you care? However, faced with Mu Chen's question, Wen Qingxian could not be as gentle as she was with Luo Li. Therefore, she spoke as she looked at Mai Chen with pride. Mu Chen could only remain silent. Wen Qingxian. Qin Feng knitted his brows as he stared at Wen Qingxian. There isn't any grudges between our Academy Alliance and you. Why are you partaking in this? Although the fame of the Academy Alliance wasn't weak, they also held fear towards this team who held the most points in the entire tournament. I'm fond of the spiritual array diagram. Can I not? When Qingxian responded. Qin Feng's eyes flashed with anger. Just when he was about to speak, a deep voice suddenly resounded from the darkness behind him. Since Captain Wen Qingxian has her eyes on this spiritual array diagram, we of the Academy Alliance shall not snatch something that someone is fond of. From the darkness, a figure slowly walked out, instantly revealing himself under the light. It was a youth that wore grey clothes. His appearance was ordinary, but his pupils were grey, as if there wasn't any life in him. His line of sight was directed towards Mu Chen's group as he lightly smiled, appearing friendly. Ghost King, Mo Yu. An astonished voice rang out. No one had expected that the three leaders of the Academy Alliance would appear at the same place. Mu Chen was also looking at the grey-clothed youth as his pair of eyes narrowed. From the latter, he could sense a peculiar fluctuation coming from him. When Qingxian took a glance at Mo Yu, she did not speak. With a flick of her fingers, the Academy plaque flew towards the youth that stood on the transaction stage. The latter grabbed onto it and quickly extracted the points that he should be getting, before returning it to Wen Qingxian along with the spiritual array diagram. Wen Qingxian grabbed onto those items and stored them without taking a look at them. Thereafter, she turned around and walked away. At the sight of this, Mu Chen took another short glance with the grey-clothed youth, before turning around and left. Seeing as they were leaving, Qin Feng knitted his brows together as he unwillingly said, "We going to let them have the diagram? If they really manage to lay out the spiritual array, it would be a huge problem for us. There's no point. Since Wen Qingxian has acted, it's impossible for us to compete with her." Mo Yu made a light smile, before continuing, "However, I have never expected that Wen Qingxian would actually help Mu Chen to such a degree. That was 4,500 points. I expect her team to drop out of top 16 from first. Why would she be willing to do it? Could it be that she has fallen for that Mu Chen?" Qin Feng said as his tone contained unconcealable envy. Being able to make such a prideful beauty to sacrifice her spot in the top, this accomplishment was something that was enough to make other guys feel unbalanced. Not too sure about that. Mo Yu shook his head as he smiled. Based on this incident, who knows how many of the guys were interested in Wen Qingxian would be disappointed. Go spread the news. Mu Chen and his group should be heading for the Divine Wood Mountain. This time, there are quite a number of powerful figures gathered at the Divine Wood Mountain. If this news goes out, I suppose it would cause them some trouble. Qin Feng's eyes lit up. Thereafter, he could not control his laughter. This time, Mu Chen would be unlucky. After exiting the pavilion, Wen Qingxian made a flick with her fingers and the spiritual array diagram was shot towards Mu Chen. Mu Chen grabbed onto it as he looked at the spiritual array diagram that still held some remnant fragrance. He spoke helplessly, "This gift seems to be a little too expensive. Because of it, your team has fallen out of top 16 from the top. It's just 4,500 points. If I want to earn it back, it would only take a short while." When Qingxuan's charming eyes glanced towards Mu Chen, "As long as you are clear that I do not have other feelings towards you. It is just an investment. Therefore, you should watch out. If you cannot deal with this spiritual array, watch out that I'll deal with you." Mu Chen smiled as he brushed the bronze scroll. He no longer hesitated as he said, "I am grateful for you to have such expectations of me. But since your team fell from first place, I will naturally send you back there." As he finished talking, he stored the spiritual array diagram and moved forward, holding onto Luo Li. "He, Big Brother Mu Chen is indeed resolute." Pinna and Le chuckled, "Captain, don't you agree?" When Qingxian looked at his back figure as she flung her rosy lips aside. Boasting without shame. Divinewood Mountain, it was a place that, even back in ancient times, was a powerful force, even within the Great Thousand World. Even in the current situation of the Great Thousand World, it was a huge power that no one could underestimate. Therefore, everyone partaking in the Great Spiritual Academy tournament was attracted by the inheritance from the remnants. Every other remnant was too inferior compared to a remnant of such a level. Thus, when Mu Chen and his group arrived at this region, they were awed by the majestic appearance as there were countless streaks of light rushing over from many different directions that their lines of sight covered. The sonic booms caused by their speeds were endless. Mu Chen and his group stood on a mountain peak. They bitterly smiled as they inhaled a deep breath from the scene before them. From this scale before him, there were probably tens of thousands of team that came here. This was a frightful amount of people. Although all the teams that participated in the Great Spiritual Academy tournament was not gathered here, it was at least a considerable amount of people. From the looks of this scale, the few hundreds of teams that Mu Chen's group encountered in the Divine Wood Palace was incomparable. This is what we call a spectacle. Mu Chen looked at the earth-shattering amount of lights. He could not help inhaling a mouthful of air. In this shattered continent, the Divine Wood Palace could be considered one of the pinnacle remnants. When Qingxian nodded her head in acknowledgement. "One of them?" Mu Chen's brows twitched as he could tell that there was a hidden message in Wen Qingxuan's words. Could it be that you thought that in this vast continent, the Divine Wood Palace was unequaled? The vastness of the shattered continent is not something that you can imagine. Generally speaking, this shattered continent was just an edge of it. Furthermore, even on this edge, the wooden Divine Palace was not unrivaled. There are still other powers that could be compared to it, said Wen Qingxian. Since the Divine Wood Palace had left behind its inheritance, it goes the same for other pinnacle forces. Naturally, there were inheritances from those forces left behind. However, compared to those hidden forces, the Divine Wood Palace was easier to discover. Mu Chen's face was grave. This remnant continent was simple too frightening. Just a corner of it could rival the Northern Heavens continent. It really was worthy of being one of the biggest continents in the Great Thousand World. How did the remnant continent shatter? Xu Huang could not resist questioning. It was said that it was because of a fearsome war that affected the entire Great Thousand World. No, it could not be considered as a war, it should be an apocalypse. In that battle, there were many pinnacle forces in the Great Thousand World that fell along with countless pinnacle existences. Rare graveness appeared in Wen Qingxuan's pupils as she continued, I have no idea what happened in that primordial time. All I know is that in that apocalypse, the Great Thousand World was nearly destroyed. Xu Huang and the rest had their faces paled. The Great Thousand World was nearly destroyed? Isn't that a little too exaggerating? Mu Chen's face changed as well. However, he recalled the foreign fiend tribe that the White Dragon Sovereign had spoken of back then. Those things were not life forms of the Great Thousand World. No one knew their origins, as they invaded without any restraints, attacking the Great Thousand World. At the same time, they also seized control of the lower planes in the Great Thousand World. Everywhere they went, they brought forth annihilation of all life. Whereas the White Dragon Sovereign was a survivor of such planes and escaped from the Great Thousand World. He wondered if that so-called apocalypse had anything to do with those mysterious foreign fiend tribes. Let's move. Up ahead of us should be where the Divine Wood Mountain resides. Let's go and take a look. There are actually so many powerful figures that came this time around. Mu Chen shook his head as he shook the thoughts off. No matter what those creatures were, it had nothing to do with the current him. Furthermore, he did not have the qualification to stop those things as the current him was still too weak. He still had to work hard to protect the things that he wanted to protect, not to mention about saving the world. He took the lead and moved, turning into a streak of light as he merged into that astronomical streak of light and sped off towards the distant. Dozen of minutes later, Mu Chen's figure gradually slowed before landing onto a huge tree that was hundreds of feet in height. His gaze was focused up ahead. On those layers of mountain ranges, there was a gigantic green mountain that quietly stood, as if it was an ancient dormant huge beast. It was emitting the scent of primordial that gave others a sensation of returning back to the ancient times. So this is the Divine Wood Mountain. Mu Chen focused on the enormous mountain. The mountain was way too huge. Standing there, they felt as if they were ants. That mountain seemed to be emitting vigorous life force. The greenery made it look as if it would never wither. But something about this doesn't seem right. Mu Chen narrowed both his eyes. Although the huge mountain stood before him, he felt as if he could never touch it. If there isn't any special means, no one can enter into the Divine Wood Mountain. Even if you can see it, you can never approach it. Wen Qingxian lightly said from the side. Mu Chen's gaze closely stared at the ancient mountain and instantly narrowed his eyes as he vaguely felt that around the ancient mountain it seemed to be veiled. However, there were also ripples that could make the hearts of others grow cold. That's the ripple of a spiritual array. This Divine Wood Mountain should be covered with a rather fearsome spiritual array. Mu Chen slowly said. Oh. Wen Qingxuan's brows twitched. She was not a spiritual array master. Thus, she had no way to sense the ripples that belonged to spiritual arrays. This ancient spiritual array is rather terrifying. Not even sovereign experts could easily intrude. However, under the elapse of time, there is some damage to it. Otherwise, it would be impossible for me to sense it. Mu Chen smiled. Seems like you really are a spiritual array master. Wen Qingxuan's phoenix-like eyes narrowed. The corner of her eyes were extremely charming. The instant she narrowed her eyes, it would emit an alluring feeling to it. This woman definitely possessed the capability of becoming a calamity. However, Mu Chen did not have any other thoughts as there was already a calamity that rested in his heart. Mu Chen did not acknowledge nor deny and only smiled. He was actually very appreciative of Wen Qingxuan's behavior and style. Such as her actions yesterday that brought him the spiritual array diagram with a huge amount of points yesterday. That action of hers was rather charismatic. She was well aware how she could benefit the most from their cooperation. Although it seemed that she had paid quite a bit of price, it managed to make Mu Chen owe her a favor. Just this point alone, Mu Chen had no way of denying it. It was best to become partners with such a person. Likewise, if such a person became his enemy, it would be extremely terrifying. So much so that even Mu Chen did not wish to have her as his enemy. What this girl possessed was not simply her devastating beauty or temperament. In the time that they spent talking, there were constant sonic booms that resounded up in the sky as countless streaks of light flew over. Thereafter, those streaks of light turned into human figures as they landed in the surrounding mountains. In less than an hour, the huge trees were gradually filled with people. Generally speaking, all those that managed to reach here at this timing possessed some capability. Furthermore, Mu Chen could tell that in terms of teams, those teams experienced a huge amount of strengthening compared to when the Great Spiritual Academy tournament had begun. Clearly, in such a short amount of time, the strength of many teams were rapidly enhancing. In that ocean-like amount of teams, Mu Chen could vaguely sense concealed, but clear sharpness and dangerous ripples. Without saying, many powerful teams had also appeared. It would require all 6 Divine Wood quotas in order to unlock this Divine Wood mountain before us. Luo Li swept her charming eyes around as she continued, the Divine quotas should be the key to this Divine Wood mountain. Mu Chen slightly nodded his head. With a grasp of his hand, the greenish wooden plaque appeared in his hand. He rubbed his palms on the plaque. He clearly knew that there was a lesser divine art in the wooden plaque. Did that mean that the other 5 that had obtained the divine plaques had also obtained a kind of lesser divine art? If that was the case, then he would have to be cautious when dealing with those fellows. Mu Chen was well aware of the might of a divine art. Even if he had already gone through the human body disaster, he would still suffer grave injuries if he were to be hit by a divine art. Just when Mu Chen was submerged with thoughts in his heart, his eyes suddenly focused and looked into the distance. There was a blood streak of light that shot towards their direction and turned into 10 figures that fell onto the mountain peak. From the familiar ripples, Mu Chen could instantly recognize that it was Shui Qiando and his party. Those fellows really are eyeing the Divine Wood Mountain. A chill flashed within Mu Chen's eyes as he looked at them. When Mu Chen noticed Shui Qiando and his party, the other party had likewise sensed their presence. Chilling gazes were being exchanged from both parties. PSHHHHHH. Not long after Shui Qiando and his team appeared, another sonic boom resounded. Everyone directed their lines of sight over and saw a huge amount of people coming at their direction, before landing on the huge trees. The 3 that was leading that huge group was the 3 leaders of the Academy Alliance that they had encountered yesterday. It seems that the Great Spiritual Academy tournament is finally getting interesting. However, how could we, the Saint Spiritual Academy, miss out on the fun? Among the endless racket, a laughter resounded. Shortly after, frightening levels of spiritual energy spread out from far away and 10 human figures flew over and attracting many gazes at the same time. Saint Spiritual Academy. Mu Chen narrowed both his eyes and looked ahead. Those fellows really did show up. It seems that the Divine Wood Mountain remnant really was filled with experts at this point of time. Dozens of figures walked on the sky under the countless gazes as they approached and hovered above this region, which attracted countless amount of attention. Mu Chen's line of sight was also directed over. Shortly after, his attention was focused onto a human figure. It was a youth that wore a white gown. His longer hair was fluttering in the wind. His white gown and black hair made him confident and at ease. A brilliant smile hung on his charming face, which made him look especially friendly. He should be that head holy son of the 4 holy sons in the Saint Spiritual Academy, Wang Zhong, right? Mu Chen stared at that person as he spoke. He could sense a decent amount of spiritual energy ripples from the latter. The ripples were much more powerful compared to experts that had gone through their spiritual energy disaster. This person was definitely powerful. When Qingxian, who stood by the side, gave a glance at this person before nodding her head, yeah, he is Wang Zhong. Among the 4 holy sons of the Saint Spiritual Academy, his fame is the strongest. Furthermore, he is the oldest amongst them. Prior to this, I have cooperated with him once. Oh. Mu Chen was startled, as he never expected Wen Qingxian to cooperate with Wang Zhong before. Then, is he considered as one of your cooperation partners? Mu Chen smiled. For the sake of benefit, it was only that period of time that we cooperated. Wen Qingxian gave an alluring smile towards Mu Chen. What about it? You're not feeling too comfortable in your heart? Rest assured, I am your cooperating partner now. Even if you started a conflict with him, I will help your team. Mu Chen rubbed his nose. What you say now is what made me feel uneasy. Doesn't that mean that if you were to cooperate with other people after this, you would say the same thing to them? When Mu Chen finished his speech, Wen Qingxuan's brows instantly knitted together. But very quickly, her brows eased out. She maintained her smile as she looked at Mu Chen, except that there was obviously a blade hidden in her smile, that's for sure. At that time, you would be worthless to us. Not only will I say the same thing, I will still chop you up, do you believe me? Save it for the finals. Mu Chen felt his hair stand up on the end from Wen Qingxuan's gaze as he gave a dry smile. Shortly after, his expression changed as he sensed a gaze that was filled with bloodlust coming from the direction of Wang Zhong. Shifting his gaze, he found a familiar figure. Behind Wang Zhong, there was a familiar team. The leader of the team was Xie Hu, the one that was gravely injured by him back then in the Divine Wood Palace. That fellow is really fortunate to be still living. He couldn't help smiling from Xie Hu's cold gaze. However, he was not worried about it. Before he passed the human body disaster, Xie Hu could still cause some trouble for him. But now, if they were to fight again, Mu Chen would definitely let him know how huge the difference between them is. Only then did Mu Chen realize that there were 3 teams from the Saint Spiritual Academy. Aside from Ji Xian, the other 3 of the 4 Holy Sons had gathered here. From the force that was gathered by them, it was quite decent. Just when Mu Chen and Xie Hu were exchanging looks, Wang Zhong shifted his head over as he directed his gaze towards Mu Chen's direction. When he noticed Wen Qingxian, his eyes lit up in an instant. Instantly, the smile on his face turned even more brilliant as he approached Mu Chen together with Xie Hu. "Ha ha, I never expected to see you here, Qingxian." Wang Zhong approached as he smiled towards Wen Qingxian. Within his tone, there was joy and gentleness. When Wen Qingxian heard how Wang Zhong had addressed her, her brow slightly wrinkled, before nodding her head. "You're here for the Divine Wood Palace, right? From the looks of it, there are many experts here. If one wishes to obtain a treasure here, it would definitely not be easy. Why don't we cooperate again?" Wang Zhong smiled. His smile contained confidence. It was the confidence that he had towards his strength. Even with so many experts gathered, Wang Zhong was not an easy target. Mu Chen helplessly smiled as he was disregarded. He could notice, at least, that Wang Zhong was obviously interested in Wen Qingxian. However, it was not unexpected, as he knew that with Wen Qingxuan's charms, it was not easy for guys to disregard her. Whereas this Wang Zhong really was a confident person. He should be well informed that he and Wen Qingxian are working together. However, he paid no mind to it and said it before his face. With their formation, no matter how you looked at it, they were stronger than Mu Chen. If Wen Qingxian chose to join them, it would greatly boost their success. Wen Qingxian was also startled by Wang Zhong's words and her brows were immediately wrinkled together. If it was based by strength, Wang Zhong was indeed a much more suitable partner for her. However, if it were to be based on her feelings, she would rather prefer Mu Chen and Luo Li. After being together for some time, she had some understanding towards Mu Chen. Although that fellow appeared to have just passed through his human body disaster, he was still quite reliable. The crucial point was that she did not need to worry that in face of benefits, she would be betrayed. Within the remnants of the Divine Wood Palace, that would definitely be an extremely attractive treasure. It was not that she had not seen betrayal before the temptations of treasure. Although she was not afraid of it, but constantly being cautious was tiring. Not knowing why, she did not have such worry or cautiousness towards Mu Chen. Therefore, she was in a difficult position from Wang Zhong's suggestion. Then, she shifted her gaze towards Mu Chen. However, Mu Chen had his head turned and was joking around with Luo Li at the moment. He was not the slightest concerned about this matter, which made her grit her teeth. That bastard. When Qingxian gritted her teeth as she shifted her gaze. Shortly after, a bashful smile appeared on her face as she pointed towards Mu Chen with her jade-like fingers. "Sorry about it. I am currently working together with Mu Chen and his team. Furthermore, he was the leader in our cooperation. So if you want to work together, you have to look for him." Mu Chen and Luo Li's smile instantly froze as they turned their heads over in astonishment, and looked at Wen Qingxian, who had an innocent look on her face. Wang Zhong's smile instantly froze on his face. He had worked together with Wen Qingxian in the past and was well aware of the latter's character of dealing with matters. She had a strong character that, even when she was working with other people, she would want to take the lead. But Mu Chen was actually leading in her cooperation with him. Wang Zhong inhaled a mouthful of air in his heart, before looking at Mu Chen with a brilliant smile. "I suppose this must be Captain Mu Chen. Ha ha, I have long heard of your name. Knowing your reputation truly is incomparable to meeting you in person." Mu Chen forced a smile in return as he could not wish digging out Wen Qingxuan's eyes, who put him in a difficult position and was currently looking at him. Captain Mu Chen, I wonder what do you think of my suggestion? Wang Zhong smiled, we are of the 5 great academies. If we 3 parties joined hands, I believe it would definitely benefit us. Mu Chen took a glance at Wang Zhong, before looking at Xie Hu, whose face was filled with a cold look towards him. The Saint Spiritual Academy was in such a miserable position that was caused by them. He refused to believe that Wang Zhong was unaware of such facts. And if he was aware of such an incident, it was impossible for him not to have any barriers in his heart. But even so, he still put down his pride to seek cooperation with them. Such a person had a deep scheming heart, definitely not the kind of comrade that he could entrust his back to. Mu Chen did not wish to be concerned of having his back stabbed while facing an enemy. He could only smile and answer, Captain Wang Zhong, the formation of your group is too luxurious, your strength is too powerful. Your group attracts too much attention and we only wish to take a look in the remnant. With your powerful group, it would not be beneficial to us instead. Wang Zhong's face could not help twitching as a chill flashed deep in his eyes. Mu Chen's excuse was simply unbelievable. That fellow did not even bother to think of a convincing excuse to refuse. It was already obvious that Mu Chen was unwilling to work together with them. You simply do not know how death is written, Xie Hu said with a chill. The members of the Saint Spiritual Academy also looked at Mu Chen with a chill in their eyes. When Mu Chen heard his words, he could only smile in reply, it seems that the lesson from before was not enough for you. Xie Hu's expression changed as his eyes grew colder. Wang Zhong waved his hand to obstruct Xie Hu as he stared at Mu Chen. The brilliant smile on his face gradually dulled. It seems that Captain Mu Chen is looking down on our Saint Spiritual Academy. Mu Chen helplessly exclaimed as he looked at Wang Zhong, I do not have any thoughts of working together with you. If your group could pull away, I have no complaints nor would I obstruct you from doing so. Wang Zhong stared at Mu Chen as chill rushed forth in the depths of his eyes. Faint killing intent was being emitted from his body and behind him, the 3 teams of the Saint Spiritual Academy filled their surrounding bodies with majestic spiritual energy. Clearly, they had the intention for battle. When Luo Li, Xu Huang and the rest saw that, they took half a step forth with icy faces as well. The atmosphere of both parties turned hostile. This caused a considerable amount of attention to be directed towards their direction. A majority of them were looking as if they were watching a movie. After all, both parties were not nameless nobodies. The moment they fought, the scene would definitely be extremely interesting. Wang Zhong stared at Mu Chen and suddenly smiled. He extended his hand out and patted Mu Chen's shoulders, since Captain Mu Chen does not wish to work with us, then I will not force you. I hope, Captain Mu Chen, that this trip will go smoothly for you. However, it will be extremely dangerous in this round of treasure hunting. I hope that Captain Mu Chen will be cautious. I thank Captain Wang Zhong for your reminder. Mu Chen nodded with a smile on his face. Wang Zhong shook his head and left. However, when he turned around, the smile on his face completely disappeared and raging killing intent flashed in the depth of his eyes. Mu Chen looked at the leaving figures of Wang Zhong's group, before narrowing his eyes. Shortly after, he saw Xue Qiando, who was coldly watching by the side, taking joy in his calamity. The Academy Alliance could not help flinging their mouths aside. That's just great, all of them are his enemies. It seems that this trip of theirs to the Divine Wood Palace would be quite exciting. Looking at the leaving silhouette of Wang Zhong and his group, Wen Qingxian chuckled towards Mu Chen, looks like you have another enemy. Sorry about that, I have brought troubles for you. Although it was an apology, Mu Chen did not feel any sincerity from her words. On the contrary, he sensed more of her taking joy in his calamity. This made him stare at her in a foul mood as he cast his lips aside. Our Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy did not have a good relationship with the Saint Spiritual Academy to begin with. Even without this rub, the battle would definitely break out between us after entering the Divine Wood Palace. He, on the other hand, had seen through it. Although he did not have any grudges with Wang Zhong in the past, based on his character that the latter had shown, there shouldn't be any possibility of them being able to coexist. Therefore, even if Mu Chen had not offended him, as long as Wang Zhong had the chance, this person would definitely not be lenient towards him. Therefore, Mu Chen did not feel that if it wasn't for Wen Qingxian, they could coexist peacefully. Wen Qingxuan's brows slightly jumped. Clearly she was a little astonished by Mu Chen being able to get over it so easily. She smiled, "Since you are so magnanimous, it would make me seem like a troublemaker instead." "How would I dare?" Mu Chen rolled his eyes at her, before pulling Luo Li's slender hands and said with contentment, "After all, not everyone would be so good at understanding others like my Luo Li." Hearing his words, Wen Qingxian could not help having her brows twitch. Shortly after, she extended her hand out to pull onto Luo Li's other hand and smiled, "Indeed, this is why I'm fond of Luo Li as well. Why don't you stinking men move far away from her? No matter what the condition is, I will also agree to it." "Really, any condition?" Mu Chen smiled as he checked out Wen Qingxuan's elegant and seductive figure. From Mu Chen's gaze, the smile on Wen Qingxuan's face became even more charming as she replied, "Why don't you try and tell me? If you don't say, how will I know if I will agree to it?" Staring at Wen Qingxian, Mu Chen could tell that there were hints of slyness and jokes. On the spot, he shook his head. This girl was not a nobody. Who knew when she would dig a hole for him to jump into? If he was not cautious, he feared that not even his bones would be left. Coward. Seeing as Mu Chen did not fall for her trick, Wen Qingxian cast her lips to the side as she said in disdain. Seeing as the both of them are constantly against each other, Luo Li could not help smiling helplessly. Mu Chen disregarded Wen Qingxuan's provocation as he shifted his gaze towards his surroundings. As time passed, the amount of teams gathered at this area increased. The majestic scene did look spectacular. 6 divine wood quotas. I believe that the 3 other parties are in possession of 1 each. Mu Chen looked towards Shuitiando, the Academy Alliance, as well as Wang Zhong. As he himself is in possession of 1, he could vaguely sense the familiar ripples coming from them. Shifting to a serious topic, Wen Qingxian no longer fought with Mu Chen as she swept her gaze around. "Including the 1 you have, there is a total of 4 here. If we want to disable the layer of spiritual array around the Divine Wood Mountain, we still require 2 other Divine Wood quotas. I wonder, who has the last 2? Mu Chen said solemnly. Those with the capability to obtain a wooden divine quota were definitely not weaklings. Wait and we'll find out. Since they fought for the divine wood quota, they would definitely come here. Otherwise, the quota would be useless. Luo Li smiled. Mu Chen nodded and spoke no further as he quietly waited for the owner of the other 2 quotas to appear. As time passed, this location became more and more bustling. All the teams were staring, waiting for the colossal divine wood mountain to be unlocked. Mu Chen stood on the peak of a huge tree with both of his eyes closed. Roughly 10 minutes later, his expression changed as his tightly shut eyes opened, directing his gaze towards the west and east. There were 2 sonic booms that resounded from the 2 different directions. Soon. Under the countless gazes, 2 streaks of light shot towards this region as they slowed down upon approaching. The lights weakened as 2 groups of people were revealed before everyone. On the left side, there were roughly 4 teams with different academy emblems on their chests. Clearly, they were not from the same academy. However, the shocking fact was that every single one of them were emitting rather powerful spiritual energy ripples. It's the 4 Sea Spiritual Academies. When Wen Qingxian saw the 4 teams, her eyes flashed with astonishment. 4 Sea Spiritual Academies? Mu Chen was startled as astonishment was reflected on his eyes as well. The so-called 4 Sea Spiritual Academies was not 1 spiritual academy. They were 4 collective spiritual academies. The 4 academies were named North, South, East and West Sea, respectively. Thus, they were known as the 4 Sea Spiritual Academies by others. There was something special about the 4 academies. Individually, they have not reached the level of pinnacle spiritual academies. However, when the 4 academies combined together, they could compete with the 5 great spiritual academies. That was because the founder of the 4 Sea Spiritual Academies was the same person. The cultivation techniques had similarities. Therefore, if they were to join hands, their power would absurdly increase. All along, the 4C spiritual academies have not been participating in the Great Spiritual Academy tournaments because of internal reasons. However, no one expected them to appear this time around. This Great Spiritual Academy tournament truly has hiding dragons and couching tigers, Mu Chen sighed. As time passed, all those powerful teams that were concealing themselves started to appear. God knows how many black horses there would be when the final battle comes. This round of the Great Spiritual Academy tournament could be considered the most intense in the recent years. Wen Qingxian also nodded in acknowledgement. In the past, although the tournaments were harsh, the 5 Great Spiritual Academies could still have obvious advantages. But this time around, their advantages were much weaker. I'm afraid that the 5 Great Spiritual Academies won't be able to obtain the top 5 ranks this time round. Luo Li said softly. In previous Great Spiritual Academy tournaments, aside from the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, the 4 other Great Spiritual Academies all clinched the top positions. Perhaps in this tournament, it would no longer be the same, since the strength of the teams participating were simply too powerful. Mu Chen nodded his head as he turned towards the west. The team that was approaching from the rest had also shown themselves. When that batch appeared, Mu Chen could not help being stunned for a brief moment. The leader of that team was a girl that wore a scarlet red dress, and was holding onto a crescent blade that was even bigger than her height. The scarlet blade's body looked as if it was drenched in blood. The girl had a fair and charming oval-like face, long hair that was tied into a ponytail, and under her waist was her swaying bottom. It was a girl that appeared to have quite the personality, from her looks. MHM? It's her. When Wen Qingxian and Luo Li saw that girl, they exclaimed in surprise, as if they had met her before. It's her. Mu Chen also cried out in surprise. However, compared to Wen Qingxian and Luo Li, his tone was a little weird. Furthermore, his face turned ugly when he saw that girl. You have seen her before. Luo Li was curious as she looked at Mu Chen. That red-dressed girl was someone she had met in the spiritual road, and it was towards the end of it. At that time, Mu Chen was already expelled from the spiritual road. So how would he know that red-dressed girl? The corner of Mu Chen's lips twitched as he dryly laughed. I knew her way earlier than you. She was the first person I saw in the spiritual road. Mu Chen's gaze was hidden, and he slightly slanted his body as he seemed to be avoiding the gaze of that red-dressed girl. How could he forget the person that he had first met in the spiritual road? Or perhaps, the crazy girl called Wu Yingying that was his first opponent. His memories of her were deep. When he first appeared, it was a stream before him, with no fishes in it. However, there was a beautiful mermaid that was not wearing any clothes. It was Wu Yingying that was bathing. What happened after that was not hard to guess. When he sensed the killing intent exploding from the stream, although Mu Chen's first reaction was to run, he had underestimated the speed of that girl. She had only draped her clothes on and chased after him with her blade. Mu Chen was tangled up with her for an entire day, suffering 2 wounds from her blade. However, he had won in the end. At that time, the Mu Chen that had just entered the spiritual road was not so ruthless yet. When he won, he had pressed that hot pepper onto the ground and gave several slaps to her bottom. Thereafter, he stripped that girl and threw her into the stream and left under that girl's ashamed gaze. From there on, Mu Chen had not encountered that hot pepper anymore. However, he was well aware that based on the latter's character, if she were to meet him again, she would definitely continue to chop at him. Furthermore, he could not tell Luo Li what he did to Wu Yingying. Thus, he felt his scalp tingling at this moment and could only hide his figure before Wu Yingying noticed him. However, things would come the more you fear them. Just when Mu Chen was hiding, Wu Yingying, who was not very far away, had turned her gaze over and, as expected, her gaze was focused on him. In that instant, Mu Chen could practically feel that Wu Yingying had fallen into a daze. As a result, Mu Chen raised his head and glanced at that girl that wasn't far away. The latter that had her face filled with cold had instantly turned red. A volcanic eruption could be seen exploding from her bright eyes. Mu Chen, I will kill you. Just when Mu Chen had a stiff smile on his face, that girl's roar had resounded throughout the heavens and earth. This episode ends here. Thank you for watching.